Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining PortaOne webinar. Your microphones are muted. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A section in Zoom. It's not a chat section, it's a separate Q&A section. So today's webinar is going to be conducted by my colleague, Svitlana Melnychuk, project manager, and myself, Mike Kidik, product officer at PortaOne. We are going to discuss today the new features introduced in PortaSwitch maintenance releases 118 through 121. We will update you on developments in PortaPhone application, and we will also provide some news about add-on Mart and Cloud PBX Portal development. And this is already a tradition, at the end of the webinar, I will have a special offer for you. So let's go. We'll start with PortaSwitch features. And the first one in my list is basically the biggest feature that we've developed in quite a while, probably in several years. And that is origin-based charging and routing. You are probably well aware that some scenarios when the charging depends not only on destination, but also on origination, are already or have already been supported by PortaSwitch for a few years. One example would be interstate-intrastate rating in the United States when you have two prices depending on where the call originates, and which became pretty much obsolete in the United States. Like these days, it's mostly not used anymore. Then we also have another example when you have a different price for a particular European country, depending on whether the call comes from within or outside European Economic Area. So these are calls from within or outside EEA. The common thing in all these previous implementations of origin-based charging are basically that the prices for a single destination, for a single rate, they were always up to two different prices. Yeah, so there were two levels of pricing. What we introduced now in maintenance release 120 is a full-scale origin and destination, obviously, and destination-based charging. So now you're not limited just to two levels, price levels, and we saw examples with 3, 4, even 5 different price levels for the same destination. So that's what is covered by this feature. When we started doing this feature, we of course collected a number of sample tariffs from you, the samples that you sent us over a couple of years, and we tried to build a solution try to cover all those examples that we saw on the market. When we started, the first thing we had to do is to do some renaming. We had an object called destination in PortaBilling for more than 20 years. And it was perfectly fine as long as tariffs were destination-based. Now, the destination word would be very strange to use in a tariff which defines prices based on the origination. So we renamed destinations into rate codes. Or sometimes for simplicity, we just call them codes. Okay? So everything now is rate code. Also, the grouping that we used to have, like destination group set and destination groups, were converted into rate code groups, and those groups are inside of a code group set. So that's the first part that we had to do, make that naming relevant to origin-based charging. The second thing that we've noticed in those sample tariffs that prices, origin-based prices, are usually defined not for a particular phone number prefix. They are usually defined for a group of prefixes, for a whole country, for a particular network. The thing which we used to call destination groups, and now it's called rate code group, or again, for simplicity, code group. So that's what we implemented. We implemented a new type of tariffs. Now we have an explicit selection on the tariff, whether it is a tariff where pricing is defined per rate code, or it's a tariff where the pricing is defined per code group. Okay, the old tariffs with pricing defined per rate code work exactly the same way as they used to work. Nothing changed for those tariffs. So don't worry, the old tariffs are still there, and they will be there for foreseeable future. They will stay in the system for foreseeable future. Now, when we speak about those tariffs which combine pricing based on destination and origination, we saw that there are two approaches. There is usually a base price, which is defined per destination or rather per destination group. But then there would be multiple prices defined per origination group. And these prices, additional prices based on origination, they sometimes replace the base price, which is destination based. Sometimes they are added to the base price. So they basically work as some sort of a surcharge. And that's exactly what we implemented. So in new tariffs, your destination-based pricing will be uploaded into the thing which we call now base rates. And then any origin-based surcharges or origin-based final prices will be uploaded as extra rates. So for any base rate in your tariff, you can have multiple extra rates, and those are typically origin-based rates. The other thing which we introduced is a so-called price selection, and that's basically an explicit rule which tells the system that, hey, we have in this tariff multiple prices in a single rate. So this is how you should treat them. So for example, there is a price selection for American interstate, intrastate pricing. There is price selection rule for EEA, non-EEA. Now it's explicitly on the web interface. There is a default price selection rule, which includes support for this base and extra rates. There are price selection rules for peak and off-peak charging, because if you have different prices for peak and off-peak hours, that would be also covered by price selection rule. So that's another new feature, which is part of origin-based charging. And the last but not the least thing that we had to accommodate this new tariffs and the new organization of new structure of the rates in the tariff upload. And we basically implemented tariff upload using the modern administrator interface, using the latest technologies. And it has look and feel of the modern administrator interface. So basically, we finally got rid of the last piece of the old administrator interface. But also this tariff now supports both, this tariff upload supports both types of the tariffs. The old one with pricing per rate code and the new ones with pricing per rate code groups and with ability to have extra rates for every base rate. We hope that this will allow you to get accurate charging for the pricing that you receive from your vendors. I know that companies started approximately at the time of COVID, approximately in 2020. Maybe some companies started even earlier to introduce this origin-based surcharges and origin-based pricing override. Now you'll be able to upload those tariffs as they are provided to you by your vendors. Since these are vendor tariffs, of course, the final price will affect the least cost routing. So your calls will be routed properly, taking into account those origin-based prices. And also, you can apply this origin-based charges, surcharges on this pricing to your customers, because this new tariffs, they can be vendor tariffs, but they can also be customer and reseller tariffs. So you can implement the same approach where calls, for example, to Turkey are charged one price if they're called from Europe, a different price if they're called if those numbers are called from, I don't know, Latin America, and a different price when they are called from Africa, for example. You can also charge your customers this way. So let's speak about the next feature. The next feature is related to bundles. As you know, we replaced our old volume discount plans with bundles. Some, I don't know, probably 5 or 7 maintenance releases ago. So now we try to make management of these bundles easier, and we added explicit type for bundles. The old volume discount plans, or the legacy type of the bundles, supported a mixture of different items inside of the bundle. So you could put quotas, wallets, discount into a single bundle. So we also introduced this bundles, prepaid bundles, which are typically used for mobile subscribers, where you have a bundle active for a certain number of days. It comes with a specific price, renewal price or activation price. And as long as the customer or the account has sufficient balance, the bundle can be renewed automatically. So that's what is now called a balance-dependent type of the bundle. The legacy, these are the old volume discount plans with a mixture of different items. We also introduced a new type, which is called renewable by calendar. And this is the exact, you get exactly the same behavior as you were getting for quotas inside of the old volume discount plan. So this is basically new quotas. But the type is defined on the whole bundle level. And then one-off is with top-up, a new type, which is basically, which acts the same way as the old wallets inside of the legacy bundles used to work. So now you have 3 new types, and I strongly encourage you to start using these new types of bundles: balance-dependent, renewable by calendar, and one-off, instead of the legacy bundles with those quotas, wallets, discounts, and whatnot. Now, the next couple of improvements and new features is related to call control API. For those of you who are not aware, this is our API, which is implemented on PortaSwitch, and it provides a way to manage calls from external applications. So those applications could be anything like operator console, click-to-dial applications, which you integrate into CRM and other platforms, auto-dialer application, you name it. Yeah. Those of you who had, or maybe your developers had experience developing such applications using our call control API, would confirm that the previous version had quite cumbersome, quite sophisticated methods to manage calls or to originate calls, which required a little bit of knowledge of PortaSwitch internals, like which components are in PortaSwitch, how they act, and so on. So we tried to simplify this. We introduced 2 new methods to originate call. One is called originate call, and the way it works is that basically it first dials to a destination number, and once the call is answered, then it tries to connect the call with basically with an extension or with a hand group, with whoever you set up to do the call. This is typically used by applications like autodialers. Then there is another method, connect to parties, which does the opposite. It first dials the extension, and once the call is answered, then it dials out to some external number. This is typically used in click-to-dial applications. For example, if you have a person like an agent or customer service representative who is logged into a CRM, and they look at the client information and decide to call the client. So they just click a button to call this client. Basically, then that click-to-dial solution for the CRM could initiate that call through connect to parties method, dial the extension. So if the person is using, for example, a PortaPhone with some headset, they receive that call, and then the call is then the system dials out to the client phone number, and then the customer service representative can start talking to the client. So these methods are much easier to use. They take less parameters. They don't require any internal knowledge of PortaSwitch, and developers should have easier time developing this type of applications. The next two methods are typically used in IVR applications. The first one, so they are basically about playing prompts to the caller and collecting some input from the caller. And those of you who have experience with the previous version of Call Control API, you know that in order to do this basic stuff of the IVR, like playing a prompt and collecting input, you normally needed to call 5 or 6 different methods. So now this is simplified. You have a basic method play, which you just tell which prompt to play to the end user. It plays it back to the end user, to the caller. And then you have another basic method, get input, which just collects whatever DTMFs the caller enters on their phone. Again, very straightforward, very simple methods, much easier to use than the previous one. And the last but not the least is a change not directly related to Call Control API, but it's a change of how you set up custom IVR application inside of the PortaSwitch. In the previous version, you needed to go to the IVR applications and create a custom application and assign DID to it. And only after that, you could have an account which would utilize that application. So like there was this two-step configuration. So we got rid of the first step. Starting from from maintenance release 120, you don't need to create any IVR applications inside of PortaSwitch. You don't need to configure any applications. You simply create an account, you assign DID to that account, and your custom IVR will be invoked by PortaSIP automatically if the call is received to that account. So we hope that all these changes will allow faster and less expensive development of such voice applications. And that was the main purpose of these changes. Now, the next feature is designed for Cloud PBX and call center customers. It's for those call center agents, those employees who typically have their extension on multiple devices. The feature is useful. It's designed to, it's basically a way for the user to continue a conversation on a different device. So let's imagine a situation. There is a call center agent who receives a call from a client, and they were on the go. So they received that call in a PortaPhone application installed on their mobile phone. And they answer the call, they start talking to the client as they go to the office. Yeah. When they reach the office, they have a PC, a laptop, where they normally work, where they can pull up client information in CRM and so on. Yeah. So they prefer to continue a conversation on their PC. And the way what they can do now is that on PC, for example, they open a web browser, they log into the web application, be it PortaPhone, be it any other operator console, any other application, and then they basically they will see a list of active calls on other devices, and they can just click a button and pull that call into the web application. So they continue talking through the through the web application instead of talking via mobile phone. This feature works. It uses invite with replaces to intercept or to pull the call into a different device. So device should be supporting it. Most of the IP phones these days support it. And if you have your own application, you can develop this. You can easily develop this feature on your own application. So basically, it issues invite with replaces to pull the call out. Obviously, in order to issue this invite with replaces, the application or the phone must have some sort of BLF where they monitor other devices and they can see that there are active calls on other devices and then initiate a call pool. So we hope that this will make your Cloud PBX service more attractive to your potential customers, and you will be able to sell more services to call centers and Cloud PBX customers. The other feature is also related to Cloud PBX, and it's related to hunt groups and call queues. In the previous version, if the call was answered by auto attendant, and then the person chooses an option which sends the calls to the hunt group, and that hunt group does have a call queue configured. If all agents are busy, the caller becomes queued, right? They get into the queue. However, if the call was already established with an extension, with a particular extension, and that extension transfers the call to another department, to a different hunt group, the call queue configuration was ignored. The call was sent to that hunt group. If there were available extension, the call would immediately ring on those extensions. If not, if all extensions are busy, then the call would simply be dropped. So call queue was not involved. Starting from maintenance release 120, even if the call is transferred by extension to a hunt group with a call queue, the call will become queued in case all extensions in that hunt group are busy. So that is one change. The other change is that if you have an account with DID and you set up a call forwarding on that account to a particular hunt group, again, in the previous versions, such calls were never queued. In maintenance release 120, the forwarded call will also be queued if all extensions in the hunt group are busy. Okay? The only exception when the call is still not queued is if it's a call between, it's an internal intra-PBX call, if it's a call between two extensions. Normally, when the call is between two colleagues, nobody does call transfer, but in those rare cases when the call is transferred to another department, the call will bypass call queue, because we were told by some of our customers that in such rare cases, the employee should not be waiting in a queue. They should be connected immediately to one of their colleagues. So that's what is what keeps working the way it used to be even before this change. Obviously, with call transfers by extensions, this provides a better user experience for callers, since their calls don't get dropped when all extensions are busy in a hunt group. But also, it simplifies administration of PBX for your customers, because now setting up incoming calls delivered directly to a hunt group is much easier. You just create an account and you set up unconditional forwarding to a particular hunt group. And if there are too many calls, all extensions are busy, the call will be queued. Now, the following two features, they are related to the auto provisioning of IP phones. And now I know that many companies, how should I say, stop using hardware IP phones. With development of applications like PortaPhone, with development of web solution, click-to-dial solutions, a lot of call centers, a lot of PBXs switch over to software user agents instead of hardware. But hardware IP phones are still very popular in the United States and Canada. And by the way, if they are still very popular in your market, please type your country name in the chat box. I would love to hear if there are other markets around the globe where hardware IP phones are still heavily used. So you know that auto provisioning is supported in PortaSwitch for many years. And the way it works is that you, as a service provider, have to set up a CPE profile, and then that CPE profile is assigned to IP phones, and IP phones get all their parameters provisioned in a particular way, in the way it's specified in the CPE profile. Okay. The challenge here is if you need to set up one particular phone of specific customer with some additional features, and it's just one phone only. Right now, the only way to do it is that you have to do the manual configuration of the phone. You need to basically log in into the web interface of the IP phone and do some manual configuration. Also, it was a bit challenging if the company, if your PBX customer required one department to have phones configured one way and then another department to have IP phones configured another way. Again, you could create different CPE profiles for them, but if you have a lot of customers and each customer has a few departments which need to be provisioned in a specific way, you end up with a lot of CPE profiles. So we try to provide a solution for these particular challenges. And what we introduced is CPE profiles, which are not on the PortaSwitch administrator level, but on the level of your customers. So they work as additional CPE profile on top of the CPE profile designed by PortaSwitch administrator. Your customers, when they log into the self-care, for example, if it's a Cloud PBX portal provided by us, they have access to this profile. They see those device profiles, as it's called on our Cloud PBX portal, and they can set up specific features. Those features can be configured just for one particular phone in their organization, or they can create a profile for the entire department, or maybe a profile for the whole company. But again, this is up to them, like what specific features and for which particular IP phones they want to configure. The typical features that they can configure in this CPE profiles are how programmable keys on the phone act, like which specific actions they perform when the key is pressed. The typical actions for such keys are monitoring of other extensions, BLF, with ability to transfer an active call to another extension. Yeah, so basically you have a programmable key which shows you extension 101, and if you have an active call, you can press that key and the call gets transferred to that extension. Features like call pickup. Yeah, if you have a call coming to your hand group and you to one of the extensions in your hand group, and the person is not at their desk, you may want to intercept that call to answer instead of your calling. Call parking and so on and so on. The specific features that are supported by these programmable keys depend on the particular phone model. So some phones support more features, some phones support only a few basic actions, depends on the phone. But we do have support of these actions in our additional CPE profiles, customer level CPE profiles. And the customer on the Cloud PBX portal can set up such a profile and can decide which those keys are represented. There is a visual representation of those keys in the portal, and they can decide that, hey, this key in the top left corner should act as a BLF for such extension. This key in the bottom left corner should be my call parking key, and so on and so on. So that is one thing which they can use these profiles for. The other thing that they can use profile is the phone books, corporate phone books. This would be a typically this would be a list of phone numbers that many people in the organization regularly call. It could be suppliers, it could be partners, I don't know, some government bodies that they need to be in constant contact with, and so on. So this phone book can be managed again on Cloud PBX Portal. Your customer can manually add entries into the phone book, and once the phone book is ready, they just mark it that it's ready to be provisioned, and it can be automatically included in the configuration file for either every phone in their organization or just some specific phones. Again, it depends on which devices this new CPE profile was assigned to. And in addition to those manually managed phone books, there is one special phone book which can be provisioned into the phones as well. That's basically a list of extensions with their names. This phone book does not require any manual data entry by your customers. They just, they just choose whether they want to have this phone book in their IP phones or not. But if they tick that yes, this auto-generated phone book should be provisioned, then the system automatically generates the configuration file for the particular IP phone with all the extensions included. If extensions are changed later on, like some extension removed, some extension added, for some extensions the name was changed, the new phone book is automatically generated. It does not require any intervention from you or from your customer. So we hope that these two features with regards to IP phone auto-provisioning, they will allow you again to provide a more flexible Cloud PBX solution and to attract more customers. Now, with that being said, I'm passing the microphone to Svitlana.
Hello, everyone. Now let's discuss the latest PortaPhone updates. And a quick recap of where we left off last time. We introduced SMS support, chats, group chats, and the ability to embed custom pages into PortaPhone. Next, please. Those features are now live and in active use of our users, helping to boost engagement and open up new revenue streams. And now let's look at what's new. What's new do we have? We added pop-up notifications for incoming calls in Web Dialer. This is especially useful for agents who don't wear headsets all day or might not be looking directly at their web browser. The pop-up ensures that no calls are missed, even when working in another tab or window. It's a small change, but it makes a big impact in high-traffic call center environment. The Popup Web Widget has also received a powerful update. We added both attendant and blind call transfers capabilities directly into the Web Widget. So now agents using the widget inside their Cloud PBX, CRM, or web portal, they can easily redirect calls without having to switch tools. This not only saves time, but also improves the customer's experience by reducing hold time. Could you please show the next slide? Yeah, this update will be available soon for all our customers who are using Web Widget. And moving on, I'm excited to introduce new models that have just been added to Add-on Mart. So first up is the mobile account self-care app for Android. The white label mobile app empowers your end users to manage their telecom accounts directly from their smartphones. They can top up their balance, view recent transactions, update contact details, and even manage their subscriptions, all without contacting support. It's a fast-track solution for improving customer satisfaction while reducing the load on your support team. And of course, the app can be branded with your colors, logo, contact information, etc. The next feature with latest release, you can offer new IP phone models to your Cloud PBX customers with auto-provision ensuring a quick and hassle-free setup. PortaSwitch supports auto-provisioning for new IP phones models for Yearlink and Polycom. With Yearlink directory integration, you can synchronize your Cloud PBX contacts list with Yearlink devices in real time. As Mike mentioned, this is especially useful for office setups where desk phones are still an essential part of the workflow. Additionally, for IP phones models already supported for auto-provisioning, you can allow your customers to self-provision features like programmable phone keys and access to corporate phone books through the self-care portal. Directory integration for Polycom devices is currently undergoing final testing and will be available shortly. Now back to Mike.
Thank you, Svitlana. So let's briefly talk about what we are planning to do next in PortaSwitch. First of all, there is a feature that we've been requested multiple times in the past, and that's basically some sort of reports on call center performance. This includes statistics of particular hand groups and call queues, like how many calls processed, what is the average time waiting in the queue, and so on and so on. And also individual statistics of call center agents, like how many calls the person processed, how much time during their shift they were in the calls, how much time they were outside of calls, and so on and so on. So we've been building this solution for quite a while now, and we are in the final stages of development to finish all these call center reports. They will be available in the Cloud PBX portal, obviously. Now, the other interesting project that we are currently working on is introducing AI-powered voice assistant inside of PortaSwitch. And the idea is basically to replace traditional auto attendants with a basically voice assistant, where the person can just, using normal human speech, ask questions and get some sort of assistance, or maybe get finally the call transferred to a live person. Again, this is in the design stage. We will start implementation soon, and we will have it in one of the upcoming maintenance releases. We were also requested to introduce speech-to-text for voicemails. You know that we've had call transcription for quite a while for call recordings, right? So that you could set up, your customers to receive, your PBX customers to receive a transcription of the call recording after the call is finished. Now we are about to introduce the same thing for voicemail. So basically, in addition to an audio file, or instead of receiving an audio file in your email, you could receive a quick transcription of the voice message. There is also this item, old style transition, which is a bit cryptic. So let me quickly explain. That's basically the old train sessions that we used to have on our old administrator interface worked pretty much as a CDR browser for vendor CDRs. And we've received feedback from multiple customers that our current train session is much better in many cases, because it doesn't simply show the XDRs, but it also extracts additional information from billing engine logs, from SIP logs, and so on and so on. So it's more powerful. But there are some particular scenarios where some of our customers still require, the old trace sessions, the ability just to see individual XDRs, vendor XDRs. So we are about to bring back that old way of browsing. So we will have both options available on the web interface. The way it used to work some years ago and the way it currently works. And your users will be able to decide what they want to see. And as usual, we'll be happy to work with you on any requests that you may have. If you have some, you're starting some new service, you have some business ideas, and some things are missing in PortaSwitch, please make sure to contact our support, and we'll take it from there, and we'll add new functionality into PortaSwitch. We do love to meet our clients in person, and trade shows is one of the best opportunities to see you, to meet face to face. So this is the next trade shows that PortaOne is going to participate in. The first one, M360, is in Uzbekistan, in Tashkent. It's going to be at the end of May. The next one is Mobile World Congress, but it's an African version of Mobile World Congress. It's going to be in Rwanda. And the last one planned for this year in November is Africa Tech in South Africa. And now let's get to the special offers that I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. And this special offer is related to the new provisioning system that we are building. We've already built the first version of it, but we will continue to improve it and to add more features to it. It is designed for provisioning of subscriber information, of account information into external systems like mobile core, like IPTV platforms, and any other platform for other services. At this point, some of you may say, hey, but don't you have ESPF already available in PortaSwitch? And it's being used for provisioning information into external system. Why do we need a new one? And let me just briefly go over the challenges that some of our clients had with ESPF. So ESPF is a great tool for provisioning external systems, but the issue is that it's quite difficult to develop new modules for external developers, not for PortaOne developers, obviously. Current statistics shows that all modules except one are developed by PortaOne developers, and this is not the approach that we had in mind when we built ESPF more than 10 years ago. We were hoping that these modules or these handlers, event handlers in ESPF, would be developed by third-party developers. The point is that when ESPF, when there is an event in PortaBilling, and ESPF passes that event to the specific handler, there is just an event itself and affected account or customer, basically an affected object, ID of the affected object. Then the handler needs to pull any additional information about account configuration, about which product is assigned to account, and so on, via the PortaBilling API. It works fine if it's just a single handler, just a single external system, which is provisioned this way. But if you need to pass, let's say, product on account changes, it triggers the event, and you need to provision this account change on multiple systems. It means that every isolated event handler, the one which provisions into a HSS in mobile core, the one which provisions into PCRF, the one which provisions into IPTV, has to query the same information from PortaSwitch via the API. It produces unnecessary load on API, PortaBilling API. So performance plus the difficulty to develop, because in order to develop a handler, you need to know the internal structures of PortaBilling, you need to know the objects, and you need to know which API methods to call to get additional information, to basically enrich the event with additional data. So with the new provisioning system, we have first of all, multiple event queues. There will be a separate event queue for each. Well, they are not called handlers; they are called connectors in this case. So for each connector, which is basically which performs provisioning in the external system, for each connector there will be a separate queue. This improves performance already. Now, if the connector pulls some account or SIM card data from PortaBilling, that information is cached in the new provisioning system. So if there are multiple connectors handling the same event, like, hey, there is a new mobile subscriber, please activate the SIM card, please assign a policy in PCRF, please do this and that in the mobile core, right? So you have multiple connectors. Only the first connector will fetch that information, only when the first connector is called. And then all other connectors in that sequence will reuse the cached data, okay? And the last, but not the least important part, is that these connectors are designed as microservices. So basically, a third-party developer would need to implement a single function in that container, in that microservice. And when that function is called, the account, the SIM card data is already passed to that connector. So the developer doesn't need to know any internals of the PortaBilling. They basically receive a data structure with all the service configuration available in the data structure, and they only need to be familiar with PCRF API or with HSS API or with API of the particular IPTV platform, and that's enough to implement a particular connector. Now let's speak about the commercials of this new provisioning system. So as I haven't mentioned it yet, the new provisioning system is a cloud-based solution. It can be deployed in the cloud in your region. Yeah, so don't worry, it's not going to be like all the entire provisioning system is somewhere far away, like half across the globe. No, it can be deployed in your region. It is somewhat an alternative to PortaOne workflows. You know that we had this solution in our add-on Mart, PortaOne workflows, for quite a while. It uses Boomi technology to implement workflows. But with Boomi, there is one particular challenge, is that if you have multiple connectors, so you have multiple workflows, every additional workflow or connector comes with additional fee, with an extra fee. You have to pay that fee, we have to pay that fee to Boomi. With this new provisioning system, it will be charged a single monthly fee regardless of the number of connectors, regardless of the number of workloads. It's a flat monthly fee. Now, the special offer that we have for early adopters is that if you want to utilize this new provisioning system, we will waive all fees for the rest of 2025. And starting from 2026, you will get a discount, which will be for the rest of the time you use this provisioning system. If you are interested in using it, please contact our sales, and they will provide you with access to this new provisioning system. And that's it for today. We've covered everything we needed. Now, if you have any questions, so I'm just showing the summary of today's webinar. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A window in Zoom, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. There was a question not really related to the features that we presented today, but there was a question whether we have some sort of control how many extensions are created by PBX customers. No, we don't have that limitation yet. The only tool that we have is basically reseller charging based on the number of extensions. That's the closest thing that we have at this moment. So if you do need to somehow limit your PBX customers, please contact our support. Let's discuss the business case, and we'll probably be able to come up with some feature for you. There is also a question whether the recording of this webinar will be available. Yes, of course, as usual. We will post it, publish it on our YouTube channel. We will also post it in the news section on our website. So don't worry, you will have the recording. It will probably take us a couple of days or a few days to prepare it, but maximum in 1 week you will get it. It will be published. There is a question about programmable keys for AP phones. The question is whether this feature is supported out of the box for every IP phone. And I'm sorry, no. Unfortunately, there is no single way of doing this provisioning. So it requires additional development in the modules which do auto provisioning. And so far, we introduced this, customer level CPE profiles and this provisioning of programmable keys per device or per department. We introduced them in those 6 phone models that Svitlana had on one of her slides. So right now, 3 Yelling models and 3 Polycom models are supported, but we do plan to add this to any new phone model as long as the phone itself supported. So any new phone models that we will be introducing in the future, we will be introducing after provisioning in the future, that after provisioning will also include programmable keys. There is one more question about the AI assistant, whether it's going to be expanded to allow teaching the AI to perform customer care inside Cloud PBX. So let me shed some light about this feature that is being planned. Most of these real-time AI assistants allow you to connect some sort of, well, it's not really a knowledge base, but usually it's some sort of like a PDF file with a few pages or some text instructions which instructs the assistant how it's supposed to communicate to the customers, what they are supposed to answer, and things like that. Also, the AI assistants, all these AI assistants typically support so-called external functions. So basically, you can instruct the assistant that if the person tells or asks specific keywords, then the assistant should offer to do this and call such an external function. And the first version of AI assistant that we are going to implement, we will have this external function basically making an appointment in a Google Calendar. So if the person calls and says, I want to make an appointment at the doctor or at whatever, the AI assistant will know that it needs to ask for a date, suggest some available time slots, and then book that appointment, and through an external function, book that appointment in the Google Calendar. So that's going to be like an MVP for the AI assistant. And then later on, of course, we plan to add more and more functions upon request from our customers. Okay, I guess we are done for today. Thank you very much for joining our webinar. As I mentioned, the recording will be published shortly on our website and YouTube channel, so please do subscribe to our YouTube channel not to miss any other useful videos. Have a nice day. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you.